The legendary, high and mighty Baskerville triplets have been completely stripped of their pride, beaten black and blue, gagged and bound in heavy iron slave chains. Meanwhile, the beach gang's leader squints hard at Vikir, trying to figure out where he has seen him before, while Vikir merely stares him down in complete silence. Suddenly, it clicks. The leader recognizes Vikir as the notorious first year from the Academy's cold weapon division, prompting a sudden reaction from the battered, chained captives behind him. He points out that since they both allegedly came from the bottom of the social ladder, he has been dying to meet the student whose name was constantly circulating around the campus. The moment the leader says Vikir's name out loud, the chained captives instantly recognize their master and gasp in disbelief. Calmly, Vikir demands to know who this self-proclaimed boss is and what exactly is happening on the beach. The boss introduces himself as Dogma, a third-year commoner from the Cold Weapon Division and the undisputed leader of the commoner faction inside this abyss. Dogma yanks the iron chains, claiming he is not keeping them on a leash for some sick, perverted pleasure, but rather to beat a cold dose of reality into them. He boasts that in this lawless hellhole, the high and mighty nobles are treated worse than dogs and pigs, assuming Vikir will side with him since they are fellow commoners. Dogma spits in anger, venting about how commoners like him were treated back at the academy. He recalls the hell of working himself to the bone to enter Colosio Academy, only to end up as a literal plaything for arrogant nobles. For 3 long years, he was humiliated and dragged around on a leash like a dog, crying tears of sheer resentment. Inside the abyss, however, social status means nothing, and Dogma realized this was his golden ticket to turn the tables. In this new world, power is determined solely by raw effort and strength, creating what he considers a truly fair playing field. Consequently, he rallied all the oppressed commoners to build his own faction, determined to make the nobles crawl. Naturally, being the strongest of the bunch, he crowned himself the leader, and his stats back it up, boasting level 10 and a terrifying new title, Human Slayer. Vikir quietly sizes him up, noting that while Dogma's base stats are impressively high for a student, the Human Slayer title is a massive red flag. Unaware of Vikir's true strength, Dogma continues his pitch, assuming that Vikir understands the struggle of surviving the upper floors. Hearing this, one of the bound Baskerville triplets cannot help but glare at the hypocritical commoner boss. Sensing the hostility, Dogma snaps, demanding to know why the captive noble is suddenly acting tough. He brutally kicks the triplet right in the face, mocking him for trying to show off in front of the newcomer. He continues to stomp on the defenseless boy, reminding him that he was crawling on the ground begging for mercy only seconds ago. Shifting his focus back to Vikir, Dogma invites him to vent all his pent-up frustration on these high and mighty nobles. He points at the bruised Baskerville brother and delivers an ultimatum. Beat down this arrogant noble who still clings to his family pride, and Dogma will graciously let Vikir join his commoner faction. Instead of playing along with the dirty bargain, Vikir quietly channels his crimson mana, ready to make a move. With a single, effortless burst of power, he shatters the heavy iron chains binding his siblings, leaving Dogma and his lackeys completely frozen in shock. With his red aura pulsing, Vikir locks onto the self-proclaimed commoner boss with a chilling glare. He steps right between them, calmly demanding to know what kind of pathetic stunt Dogma is trying to pull. He does not hold back, flatly telling Dogma that his little power trip has absolutely nothing to do with real revenge. He corners Dogma with a direct question, asking if these 3 specific triplets were ever the ones who actually tormented him back at the academy. Vikir exposes the boss's glaring hypocrisy, pointing out that torturing innocent bystanders just because they are nobles makes Dogma no different from the abusers he claims to hate. He dismisses Dogma's grand crusade as nothing more than a cheap, low-class way to satisfy his own twisted ego, prompting the furious commoner to scream at him to shut up. Enraged by the call-out, Dogma claims he does not care why Vikir is defending them, insisting that every single noble is the exact same trash, and warns Vikir that by standing up for them, he has officially picked the wrong side. Declaring that Vikir is now officially classified as trash too, Dogma summons a massive, swirling fireball and hurls it straight at him, determined to burn him to a crisp. The giant fireball collides head-on, triggering a massive blinding explosion that completely engulfs Vikir and the triplets. Dogma smirks, expecting them to be turned to ashes, but his triumph is cut short. As the flames dissipate, Vikir stands completely unfazed, having effortlessly blocked the entire attack to protect his brothers. Vikir looks at the stunned commoner, coldly pointing out that for someone who claimed to hate oppressive monsters, Dogma has become the exact same thing. Losing his mind entirely, Dogma screams at Vikir to shut up and lunges forward for another desperate strike. But Vikir moves like a ghost, casually evading the attack and leaving Dogma grasping at thin air in shock. Seizing the opening, Vikir grabs Dogma by the head and slams him face first into a massive tree root with crushing force. The self-proclaimed boss is instantly knocked out cold, slumping defeated at the base of the Crimson Tree. Seeing their invincible leader get demolished in a single move, the terrified Beach Gang members immediately drop their weapons. Realizing they stand zero chance against this monster, the lackeys scream in terror and run for their lives, leaving their boss behind. With their captors dealt with, the Baskerville triplets immediately drop to their knees, expressing deep relief that their lord is alive. When Vikir asks if they are doing okay, the brothers enthusiastically spring up, declaring that compared to their brutal Baskerville training, these minor bruises are absolutely nothing. Getting right to business, Vikir demands to know what kind of disaster happened on the upper floors for high-tier warriors like them to get captured so easily. The triplets' expressions darken as one of them steps forward to explain the grim reality of what went down. He reveals that the nightmare truly began on the second underground floor, right during the chaotic Hellhound survival mission. When the terrifying demonic beasts suddenly swarmed the plaza, the vast majority of the students completely panicked and fled for their lives. Even though the tower's curse had weakened everyone 100-fold, the noble students stepped up to the front lines, fighting to buy precious escape time for the rest of the group. But right in the middle of that desperate, life-or-death struggle, Dogma and his so-called commoner faction suddenly arrive. Instead of joining the fight against the monsters, the cowards brutally stabbed the defending nobles in the back. By murdering their classmates and stealing all their hard-earned stat candies, Dogma's faction forcefully claimed the position of the strongest. The triplet warns, however, that this backstabbing was only the warm-up, and that the true sickening hell only worsened once they descended to the third underground floor.